Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Sorry for the delay.
No worries. It gave me enough time to kind of set up and start drinking some of the coffees. So,
How
I
are
appreciate
you tasting?
they're tasting good.
Yeah,
Like, they're so tasty. I'm literally so excited about this month's subscription from you guys. It's actually really exciting. But yeah, so
how
JD, great to have you. Thanks so much for just making this happen, basically. Um, for,
absolutely.
yeah, for all the subscribers and everything, for February's subscription. You mind just kind of talking a little bit just about yourself? How'd you get into Wide Awake and whatnot, or your history and just Wide Awake's history too? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll start maybe a little bit with how Wide Awake started. I think that's gonna give a little bit of an entry point and how I joined as well. Um, so Belgium, the coffee scene here historically has been quite traditional, and except a couple of roasters, we never really had a very big specialty coffee scene. And I think there was not uh no one really pushing the limits from the forefront. So our founder Rutger, he was actually living in New York, and his daily was a cup of specialty coffee from a specialty cafe next to him. And he never really had the chance to try that when he was in Belgium. And I think back in the day, we didn't really have except two to three cafes, anyone in Brussels doing specialty coffee, even, which, pretty insane now that you think of it. There is a specialty coffee shop like so many places. It's now it looks sounds a bit bizarre to think of that. And then when he came back, he realized that it's something that he wanted to pursue. And then he linked up with the co-founder with Senina, who used to be roasting at Origin Coffee in the UK. And there she also wanted to do something by herself, and her partner was Belgian, so she was actually looking forward to move to Belgium. So
Mm.
both of them started right away coffee. Um, and the idea was really just, to do great coffee uh with intention, but at the same time make it accessible for people. Because here, people were a bit more traditional and they didn't really see why they should switch and how good a coffee can taste, etc. So, for instance, the all the names of our coffees, Strawberry Fields, Juice Box, everything was made with the idea to make the coffees more accessible and help people understand what exactly can you expect from such coffees, right? Especially because people are caught really off guard initially by the acidic, fruity, and a little bit more of the, yeah, funky profiles. So it was also a little bit of an heads up that, okay, this is not your usual cup of joe. So that's how Wide Awake started a little bit. And then it's funny because when I started in coffee, which was back in 2020,
Mhm.
um, I started at a cafe that was taken over by my boss back then, in 2019. So I think he was the one who was really doing the only cafe who was doing guest roasters, by the way, in Brussels, which again, to think about it now is also bizarre. But when I joined, it was the first big cafe, or one of the first big cafes that Wide Awake started working with.
Mhm.
And so I kind of was the first coffee I had was Wide Awake, the Strawberry Fields. I still remember. And funnily enough, it was a Honduras. So it was not the same Honduras we have now. Uh, but it was a Honduras coffee. And I remember that after having that coffee for 2 days, I could still have that aftertaste in my back of my tongue. And I was like, fuck, what is this?
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, so long story short, 1 year in, Wide Awake organized the Belgian Aeropress Championship because we don't really have SCA here. So we're in the process now of making SCA happen. Um, and I don't know how, actually, I'm still amazed by how that happened, but I ended up being number one there, and my boss was number second. So that was a pretty funny story. We were just
Congrats.
standing. Sorry.
Yeah, congratulations. I didn't know that. That's too cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, honestly, we were training together and we did recipes completely the opposite. And we were just like, okay, he really loves sweetness. I really love acidity. So we took like really different approaches. And yeah, and I remember in the final, we were looking at each other like, what is going on? This is happening so fast. And here, AeroPress is a big thing. Like we have around, Belgium is a small country compared to the US. Um, but we have around 81 people who are really professional baristas, and normally it's sold out in a couple of hours, the sign up. So it's not even that, we have to beg people to join. People are really enthusiastic about joining. And yeah, so, you know, as much as I would like to say the rest is history, I just shortly realized that I really wanted to be behind the scenes in coffee. The co-founder who was roasting back then, she opened her own sourdough bakery here, which is actually now a very famous bakery. And then our head roaster joined the team, and then another person joined the team. So now we're five full-timers. We started in a small space in the center of Brussels, where was the Probat 5 kilo roaster, and then we had the cafe in the front, which is takeaway only if people wanted to try, or cuppings, etc.
Mhm.
And then we slowly moved out of there. Then last year we again moved out, so now we have finally a big enough space, which is a bit outside Brussels. It's beautiful. It's next to the canal. We have a big canal going through Brussels, and we have a big rooftop. You can see the entire city from there. Exciting news is that next in 3 weeks we're now moving to a Probat, from a Probat to a Loring,
Yeah.
so 25 kilo, which for us is very exciting because you know right now we're roasting every day of the week, full days. So it's pretty intense. It's a 12 kilo roaster that we're currently using.
Hmm.
So it's going to be a lot of relief, and the loading also allows us to bring more cleanliness to the coffees and highlight a little bit more the work at origin.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I don't know. I hope that wasn't a very long answer, but that's the story of Wide Awake.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, that was an absolutely fantastic answer. The fact that you got first place and your boss got second is just too neat. That's awesome. Like,
but yeah, he was very nice about it, I mean, for both of us, it was like I learned everything from him. So
yeah,
for him, it's a bit more of a compliment, actually.
that's
So
right. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'm tasting the coffees right now, and so let's just kind of just basically walk through each one and just kind of chat about them. Let's start with the Strawberry Fields. Like, tell me a little bit about this coffee, where it's from, and or the
Right.
producer. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, good to know maybe is that we work with the idea of series. So what we're trying to do here as Wide Awake is we're trying to answer different taste profiles that people might have. And then whenever we're cupping or whenever we are choosing coffees or tasting or whatever, we're always thinking of our series as like the benchmark. Where can these coffees fit in our offering, right?
Yeah.
So Strawberry Fields is one such coffee that is always a natural coffee. Um, well, I think we had once there was a honey process, but besides that, we never really have any other coffee. Very heavy on the red fruits,
Mhm.
has
Yeah.
nice flolality to it, a lot of sweetness. Some of them have slight funk to it, like this Honduras has a slight funk. But then most of them are just really nice, easygoing coffees. Nothing too crazy, because price point as well, if you look at it, uh, it's reasonably priced.
Oh yeah.
So we don't want to go really crazy with it. Um, but still a really nice cup of coffee that you can enjoy every day. That reminds you of red fruits,
Yeah.
florals,
Hmm.
sweetness, balance, has a nice acidity, but not too much. So that's the idea we have. Um, so it's really the season now, the month ago, where we look for South American, Central American coffees, with the harvest. Honduras is a difficult difficult origin sometimes. So
Mm.
lately, all the coffees we were tasting were like tasting a bit papery, not really, great on the finish.
Oh.
And with this one as well, when we cupped it, actually, we were not fully convinced. And bit like, okay, we want to have for us, it's important to have a diversity of origins. So just to showcase different things, we don't want to have like 8 Colombians in a series of 10, right? So you see some roasters do that.
Yes.
And that's fair enough because, Colombia has that edge over there because they have 2 harvesting periods in a year. So
Yeah.
there they have that. But for us, it's like, it's also nice to showcase origins and what different countries are producing. And so this one was very, I think, a pleasant surprise when the actual bags came in, and there was more funk than initially what we cupped. So now everyone tells us that it's quite a funky coffee, and we're
Yeah.
always taken back a bit. It's a
Yeah.
bourbon variety, and it stands out to it. So what you expect from bourbon, like, really has that little nuttiness going on. That's also what we like to look for in strawberry fields.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, really, really good one. This is a new producer that we're working with, Wilmer Grau. It's because we don't really have a lot of Honduras that taste great every year, so we're always on the search out of it. So this one we tried, we were really happy with it, and we went for it. So also important for you to know the way we work. Initially, being a small roastery, we always worked with a little bit of an opportunity point of view where we would work with the same importers. So we have Sucafina, Nordic Approach, here are the couple of big ones.
Right.
And then we tell them what kind of coffees we're looking for, which is our series or our taste profiles. And then we let them send us what they think is the best one. At least this was the case 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And up until 2 years ago, when we realized, okay, now we're 3 years in, now there are some coffees that we really enjoy every year, and we started bringing those coffees in every year, right?
Hmm.
Um, and for instance, the coffees from Sebastian, we enjoy. It's been a year and a half, and we keep working with Sebastian.
Yeah.
He also came to Brussels last year. We Yeah, and it was really nice because we did a cupping with him. And
Yeah.
anyway, we'll move to Sebastian later.
Yeah.
Uh, but the idea is that now we're slowly trying to create a different approach to sourcing. So we want to work with producers that are working with us every year. So the projects we believe in, the values we believe in, but still keep some room or a bit of a buffer to work with new producers,
Yeah.
new varieties, new origins, new processing. So I would say like 70% we want to work with the same people over and over again, and
Yeah.
then 30% keep that little bit of that buffer, right?
Yeah. No,
So
that's
yeah,
actually, yeah, that's wonderful. Just to jump in and say, I feel like to an extent that's, I mean, we get to chat with a lot of roasters, and for the most part, most of them are always kind of on the search, but it's nice to hear from your perspective the fact that you really are trying to, create long-term
yeah,
relationships and
yeah,
commitments, but you really are looking like and understanding that there are always producers coming up in the world, and
yeah,
yeah, so that's just kind of really neat that you happen to find a Wilmer in Honduras, and this coffee is so good. Like the tasting
yeah.
notes are remarkably spot on. Like I like literally like red plum, like the acidity of a cherry, like the apricot, and then just like on the end like a dark rooibos tea is like
Yeah,
I'd actually say
variety.
it's
Yeah,
like remarkably spot on. So it's just like wonderful to have a natural bourbon that's just so tasty and
yeah.
literally, like you said, in the price range. I was really surprised when I got on your wholesale website and I was like, no way, like this is great.
Yeah, and I think these are the kind of coffees that catch you by surprise nowadays, and when you're like, what the hell am I tasting here? And because now you have access to, it's funny because when I started in coffee, um our cafe was the only one doing a freezer menu. So we had a lot of the coffees from Manhattan actually, which were in the freezer. And back in the day, you would taste like a Panamanian geisha or a coffee from Diego Bermudez, and you'll be like, wow, what the hell? I haven't tried this ever again before in my life.
Hmm.
And now, from the last recent years, everybody has access to these coffees, actually,
Hmm.
And I'm sure I'm not the first one who's telling you this, but slowly that trend is going away a little bit, and now people are finding more and more joy in the coffees that are not so crazy,
Yes.
and yeah, so this is one of them that when I drank and I'm like, wow, I can drink this every day in the morning. And yeah, I'm so happy to introduce this coffee as because it's Honduras as a origin. You don't have so many roasters out there giving Honduras coffee, and it's a really good one.
Yeah, it's kind of one that, I mean, I've only been to like few countries in the world, and Honduras happened to be one of them. And I haven't gone to
Oh.
coffee farm or whatnot, but one of my like good friends is Honduran, and so like ever since like going years ago, in my mind I'm like always thinking like, man, like Honduras, like what's from there, so like even like my favorite cigars are like from Honduras, and so so like I'm always thinking like,
Awesome.
yeah, like what can I get from Honduras that's absolutely really good and tasty? And so anytime we get a good Honduras coffee, I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Um, yeah, and this was absolutely tasty. Yeah, and for all of the brews that I do here at home, kind of just like to do QC on these and just kind of give my tips. I use the Commandante and I brew on the V60, and I did 15 clicks and basically 4 pulse pours. And I think it came out around like 3:30 or so. And it's just like perfect. Like I like first go, and it was like, this is date. I don't have to do anything with this, which is really nice to
and,
be honest.
and
Um,
what are you going on?
I'm brewing on the V60.
Okay, so the V16.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Really
at
happy.
the cafe, we've switched over now to origami. And to be honest, at home, I actually, oddly enough, I primarily use the April brewer, which is kind of weird. I don't know anyone else who does, but
I use it. I
no
use it.
way. That's wild.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
I mean, I used to really like the way they used to approach coffee. And yeah, anyway, you were saying, don't let
Yeah,
me
that's a
interrupt
whole other
you.
conversation. But yeah, no, super tasty. And yeah, I was just really happy with this. Yeah, this coffee is just so fun. Even like opening up your bags, like all of your bags. First of all, like, I mean, just look at this branding. This branding is just absolutely fantastic. Like it's just
Very
absolutely
bad.
fantastic. And I don't know why this is, but you're one of the few roasters that when I've opened up your bags and smelled your beans, it's just like, I don't know. It's just like a wave of aromas. It
Oh,
really, and
oh.
I really don't know if that's anything about how you roast or whatnot, but like whatever it is, like I've noticed that very intentionally that these coffees are just like booming with aroma. And it's just the neatest thing to be able to taste. Yeah.
I think it's also because, we we like I don't want to say funk anymore because now funk has a very crazy definition, but
Yeah.
we like something in between funk and clean. So
Yeah.
like I think Strawberry Fields is a very good example of a coffee like naturally processed bourbon variety that heavy on the aroma, but not overwhelming, just
Mhm.
enough for you to enjoy every day.
Yeah.
So try to yeah, it's interesting that you said that because I haven't really compared the aromas, and now that you said it, it did click in my mind, and I was like, actually, yeah, there's a lot of roasters that I open the bags and there's a lot of focus on cleanliness, or you go the other way around, and actually it's true. A lot of the times we somehow fall in the middle.
Hmm.
I mean, that's also the kind of identity we have found ourselves in a little bit, that we chase balance a lot. So for us, balance is so important, and um, we we also keeping the Belgian market in mind. The idea is that coffees are roasted in a way that are easy to extract. So, but at the same time, light enough that keep that is easy for you to taste the work of origin, you know? So I would say we fall a little bit in between. If if you were to say light coffees is 1 on a scale of 1 to 10 and medium is 10, we're like 4, you
Yeah.
know. So we're not the lightest out there, but then easy enough to extract them, you know, you don't have to rest the coffees too long, 2 weeks after you're already at the peak. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. It's just absolutely good. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned like kind of going back to, the regular trend to an extent of just like finding good natural and washed coffees as opposed to the, crazy fermented ones, because some of our baristas are now saying that, um, partly that's because we've carried so many, from Manhattan to Mame to some like even Little Wolf that we have right now. Like we've got a Nestor Lasso from Little Wolf, and all of them, just crazy fermentations. And so we're getting to the point where a few of us, if specifically one or two of my baristas were like, man, like I just want to find like let's just go back. Let's just go back to the normal, just like really good washed and really good naturals.
yeah,
And so it's really neat to find that you guys are prioritizing that to an extent, and you're
yeah,
able to
yeah.
just really execute it well, which is just it's pretty fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. No, I mean, I think we have an advantage there because of our series, you know. And there I really saw that we have a little bit of a strength and opportunity there because we can still experiment and play around. Like for instance, the wildcard that you have now,
Mhm.
um, the wildcard was discontinued as a series for the longest time because we didn't really know where to fit it in. Like we had a coffee profile for all the series.
Yeah.
And then it's only recently we brought it back. It's the second release that we've done because we were like, okay, you know, we don't have a lot of coffees that we like that are so funky out there that have these crazy fermentations,
Yeah.
but some of them are super nice. And it's also a very good example of, you know, how can farming techniques and modern engineering produce this crazy cup.
Yeah.
So, and then voila. So we were like, let's bring wildcard back. It's that wildcard when you're playing the game, and you're like, okay, it's like a joker, it can be. And the idea with wildcard is that no matter how you brew it, it's gonna taste great. Doesn't matter how. You can over extract it, you can under extract it, it's still gonna be like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, yeah. Well, before we get that to that, let's talk about the juice box real quick because
Yes.
it is also so tasty. Also, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of surprised that this is just a washed Kenya. And I know that sounds weird, but because there's a lot there. And so for some
Yeah.
reason in my mind, it was I don't know. In my mind, I was just assuming this would be either like a natural Ethiopia or something else, almost when tasting. But it's just a really good washed Kenya.
Really,
Um,
really good one, definitely.
yeah.
Um, yeah, Kenya is my favorite origin for me.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but I really, so here it's funny because a lot of people recently have started telling me that Kenya tastes like tomato, which, we've always had people like these saying,
Mhm.
and it's always a big debate in our industry where it's like tomato or blueberries, what is it exactly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, for me, I love tomatoes. I don't really see the problem with it. I remember still we were in 2021 cupping a bunch of Kenyans, and there was this one Kenyan that we cupped, and me and my colleague, we looked at each other. We were like, this is the bolognese, literally straight up bolognese, like this is like exactly spaghetti bolognese. Um, yeah, but really, I think for me, I enjoy Kenya so much. There has never been a Kenya that I haven't enjoyed, and I've been like, oh, this is too much. Same for Ethiopians, actually. But Kenyans,
Mhm.
I a little bit. I always have a Kenyan at home. I try to always have one. Do I have one right now? I think I have our old juice box, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, very good one as well. Really, so with Kenyans, we have also having a hard time now. I don't know if you've had it, but Kenya is a difficult country. It's not the easiest country to grow coffee in.
Yeah.
They've been having a lot of problems with water. with supplies, and the government is not really helping.
Yeah.
Um, so lately, year after year, you've seen a bit of a downfall in how bright the coffees have been.
Hmm.
Um, so actually, we used to work with a couple of farms that we brought in, but then the same issue that actually a lot of roasters are facing now, that Kenyan's coffees are just not tasting as they used to, you know. It's
Hmm.
also attributing from climate change. It creates a little bit of a difficult environment. And now this year we had a lot of problems actually finding a good Kenyan coffee. This one also at first we were not super happy with, because for us we really like brightness in our juice box. So usually juice box is a coffee that is always washed. So these are the coffees that are really bright, high on acidity. There is sweetness there, but really citrusy, has nice florals, and yeah, just like really a juice box, you know, the most juicy coffees we have without any funk whatsoever, just straight up juice. And so this one is one of the more balanced juice box that we've had actually.
Yeah.
When we found this, like you mentioned, right, that it's a very balanced juice box, and a lot of berries there, has a nice plum-like sweetness as well, and the beans are also quite big. I don't know if you saw them; they are AA compared to the other Kenyans that you know normally you
AB
get.
or yeah. Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. They actually are kind of.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
interesting. Oh,
this one also on espresso for the home brewers out there. If you have a espresso machine, tastes super good, really really juicy, very nice. Again, since we're chasing balance, and this one is has a nice sweetness to it, like you mentioned as well.
mhm.
On espresso, it's not overwhelmingly acidic, and I remember I was brewing I think 18 in, 38 to 40 out in around 34 seconds. It's tasting great,
Oh,
so good.
that sounds amazing.
And yeah, it's really, really nice. And especially as a flat white with oat milk, oh my God. It was like a blueberry cheesecake, literally.
Oh Lord,
Really, really nice.
sounds
And
incredible.
yeah,
Huh.
yeah, super nice. And yeah, really good one. You can't go wrong with this one. Absolutely not. Just a classic, I would say.
Yeah, even tasting it, I think one of the notes, is lemon balm, and I very much get that. Another is purple grape. I
Yeah.
almost get like purple florals, almost. It's
Yeah.
just so clean, and like I really like the texture and or the mouthfeel. It's very like silky and like airy. It's very light in the way that I want it to be, where it's not like translucent, where it's like almost too thin. This is like right on that cusp where it's still so pleasant when you kind of switch it
No,
around. So yeah,
absolutely.
such a fun coffee. Yeah, yeah, absolutely love it. So those two obviously kind of were for our approachable subscription, and I couldn't have been more happy with them. Just super fun.
Mhm.
Again, yeah, your price points I was just amazed by. So I was like, let's get these. Like this is
Yeah.
insane.
I
Um,
would also advise, like just you said about that mouthfeel and that silkiness, brewing on the AeroPress, you really get that additional mouthfeel in, I think. We tried to brew it on different things and see what, you know, where initially so good thing is we have a bar here, so we can also experiment a lot and get direct feedback from the customers, which I think for us is a very big opportunity. Not a lot of roasters have that, we get to talk directly to the end consumer. So with every coffee, we sometimes try to dial it in using different devices. And with that AeroPress, with Kenyans also, you know how African coffees are with pour overs, they tend to clog up the filters, and then it's difficult to not get that astringency and still get sweetness, right?
yeah,
So we try to play around with the AeroPress a lot, because there you can control parameters a bit more,
yeah.
and that silkiness really comes through that you describe, that velvety mouthfeel.
Mhm.
So yeah, this one.
That's quite wonderful. Yeah. And to have a Kenya like this is just it's a delight. We don't have Kenyas too often for the most part, and obviously we're working with, on our shelf we have around 6 roasters, and we still don't get Kenyas a lot. And so whenever we do, and it's a good Kenya like this, it's almost a rarity. It's because as I'm drinking this Kenya, to be honest, it doesn't remind me of tomato soup, or it doesn't seem really savory. And so I think these Kenyas are a little hard to come by that are that higher in acidity, remarkably
Yeah,
balanced, and
yeah.
just can drink every day. Because most of the Kenyas that we've had in the past have been like that or whatnot, and people who have gotten them have been like, oh, like I had the Kenya yesterday, I'm not going to have it again, as opposed to like, oh, like I want to try it again. So this is like a coffee in my mind that I'm like, people will go back to this. Like this is just, I don't know, yeah, if that makes any sense, but it's just so good.
Yeah, very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting how different regions in the world prefer different coffees, and yeah, it's very interesting for me to know as well.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
But yeah, I brewed that on I because it was an African coffee, I did a little bit coarser, kind of like you said, did about
Yeah.
17 clicks, and it came out really nice around like 325 or so. And it was just like, this is great. The first brew I did, it was like over 4 minutes and just heavy, So I was like, let's do this again. And it came out perfect. So just coursing it up a little bit, and it was like this fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, this one, even with 4-minute brews, it's difficult to get that dryness, or that negative attributes that you get from an bit longer extractions.
Yeah.
Really good one.
Ah,
Super, super enjoy it. For me, my juice box is like, if I had to choose one series from our series that is like my go-to or a safe option, it's always a juice box. I haven't had a juice box and I'm like, oh, I'm a bit iffy about this one. So,
they've
and
all
I am the most critical in the team with our coffees. So, when we're having a chat and I'm like, yeah, I'm really not feeling this one, or this could be better, or I'm who's kind of like bringing critical feedback. I'm like, guys, we need to do better here.
yeah.
So, juice box does not disappoint.
All right. I'm so glad to hear. Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so moving on to our two exotic options, which
Yeah.
both to be honest, like they blew me away. Especially on the cupping table, they were two of the just big standouts, obviously. Talking about the wild card first, it's from Nestor Lasso, just so it's like, well, this is going to be good no matter what, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
It'll,
yeah,
like I said, at this point, how do you compare him? How do you put Nestor? He's like, what's the best way to describe Nestor at this point? I don't know. It's just celebrity. He's like a coffee
I
celebrity
mean, he
now.
is. Yeah, and that's like the weird thing. In I'm trying to think if I've had any Nestors that have been like lackluster, and I haven't. It's just every coffee has been not even just good, it's always been exceptional, absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. He's,
just
he's, he's
he's so good.
cracked the code. He's cracked the code.
He's cracked the code. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sorry. So yeah, tell us a little bit how, I don't know, maybe you got into like even contact with Nestor, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
or about
So,
him in general for people who don't know.
yeah. So I've met actually Nestor 3 times already now. I first met him in Brussels. So he was here with Kata. They are importers from Colombia. And this was 2021, I believe. This is when, I think from my experience and a little bit more of the European side, one of the first farmers to come really into play on a more bigger global level from Colombia was Diego, right? Diego Bermudez. And then Nestor is the one who really followed up after him, and he's such a nice and humble guy. If you talk to him in person, he's so shy, and it's just it's his story is also incredible. From what I understood, that his parents were not doing specialty initially. So he's the one who convinced his dad that he wanted to do more specialty coffee, and his dad gave him a bit more land, bit by bit, year after year, to experiment. And I think he has taken over a good part of the total land that they own. Um, and that's just a beautiful story right there, that how specialty coffee is full of passion and value and belief rather than just producing money. You can really create something really good out of that. So this is a interesting variety, Obligon. This one got famous because of competitions. So I think last year or the year before, someone used it for the first time, and then there was this time where it really got famous. So we went a bit back and forth with this Obligon. We tasted from a couple of other farmers. We were a bit not super convinced. And then we tried Nestor's Obligon, and we were like, okay, this is the one, like really for me it was like Frutella, like really straight up. Super tropical, a lot of pineapple, mango. And again, this is also one of the coffees that it still has, it doesn't, the fermentation doesn't just stand out, there is still a
Yeah.
nice balance. Like, okay, there are coffees that you try and you're like, you can really just taste the fermentation. You're like, okay, it's a bit too much. This one, it's incredibly mix matched, has a nice sweetness to it, has a nice balance, and I think it's definitely one of the really special ones that you can really taste those tropical notes. Again, on espresso, mind blowing. Really, really nice one. I
Mm,
love to put all of these coffees also on espressos to see what is there. And
yeah.
most of the times, such coffees, especially our wildcards on espressos, can be a bit too much, like too overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
But this one, really nice, really has a lot of tropical fruit in it, but still easy to drink, nothing too crazy. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of people really like that lactic mouthfeel that the coffee brings, that, that milkiness, that coconutiness. As the coffee cools down, the mouthfeel really becomes very lactic. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
you're
very
right.
happy to keep working with him. Yeah, and especially with this variety.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably almost a year ago or so, maybe 9 months, that I had my first obligon, and it was also from Nestor, and it was roasted by Manhattan. And that was my first, just like, of Nestor, even just in general. And I was just like, what the heck? This is just so good.
Yeah.
Um, and so I haven't had an obligon since. And so to taste this again and be like, yep, this is as good. It's
Yeah,
just absolutely insane. You're right. Literally tropical and exotic fruit notes, just bombing, and just, oh my gosh, just, yeah, mango or guava and just pineapple. The mouth feels just so, yeah, just milky and creamy, and it just fills, and it's pungent, it's
absolutely.
fudgy, it's just like everything all at once, but it's still not like overloading and or overwhelming. It's still like you can still just allow it to be, and it's so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
this
This
coffee.
coffee also was they won the Brewers Cup in Ireland last year,
Mhm.
and was third in the French Brewers Cup, I think, last year, if I'm not mistaken. No,
Wow.
Austria. So yeah, very like one of the competitive coffees,
Yeah.
best of the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I could not be a bigger fan of Nestor Lasso, and just everything he's been producing has been fantastic. And so that's a name now that we're always on the lookout for, and
Yeah, he has that credibility indeed. Have you had a chance to meet him?
no, I have not, unfortunately, but I hope I get to.
Yeah, I hope so because yeah, really, really nice guy, very, very young, very passionate, very
Yeah.
chat to him about everything. And I think you can also just reach out to him on Instagram. And if you want to talk a little bit more about the coffee for all the people watching, you can just send him a message in Instagram. I don't think his English is perfect, so maybe better to, translate to Spanish.
Mhm.
But I'm sure he'll be more than happy to explain you a little bit about how the processing has been done, because it's very intricate processing as well for this coffee.
Mhm.
Show you a little bit more about the variety, the Obligon.
Mhm.
So he's very approachable like that. He's a very
Yeah.
nice guy.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely have to reach out to him. But yeah,
Yeah.
even brewing the coffee, kind of like you said, whether it's like a fast brew or like a really long brew, absolutely delightful, no matter what.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did 15 clicks on this, and a couple grams less, and like 20 grams in, 300 out, still four pulses. It just came out at like 225, like 220, just really fast, and it's just like unbelievably tasty. And so it's like, I this is insane. I don't know, it's just funny because you think you have parameters for like, usually let's keep coffees around this level, but this just like, it's one of those coffees where it kind of broke the boundary, and it's like, look, I'm just good anywhere. Just like,
But these ones also, the thing is that since there is a little bit more processing done than the usual ones, it's better to also not extract them as much, because then often these are easily to be over extracted. But like
mm,
I said, this particular one, you can just do whatever with it and you'll end up with a good cup.
yeah, yeah, absolutely delicious. Yeah, so you mentioned on espresso, it's absolutely wild. So,
Yeah.
for people at home also wanting to do it on espresso, like any good parameters for them?
Yeah, with this one, I think it was really when we released it. This was back in December that I was in Milan Coffee Festival, and there we were experimenting a little bit, and I think with 20 in, 40 out in around 32 seconds ish. So
Mhm.
if you think it's still quite pungent, I love acidity, huh? I really like that slap, let's say. Some people don't enjoy it, so feel free to push it to 34 seconds, 35 seconds. You'll get a lot of like still lightly roasted, right? So with these coffees, go a bit further to bring out sweetness. There's a lot of sweetness to be brought out. What I do, I usually push till it gets a little bit more astringent, then I take a step back, right? So 34, 35 seconds
Okay,
is a good
wonderful.
ballpark.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and lastly, let's just have to finish off with the Sako, which is, am I saying it correctly? Is it Sako?
Uh, it's Saoko.
Saoko. Saoko?
Saoko. Yeah. It's, Rosalia, the singer.
Rosalia. Rosalia.
You
Um,
know her. She's yeah, she's very famous. I think she's Colombian. Rosalia. Let's see. Is Spanish. She's Spanish. She's very famous, huh? Like in Spain, at least, and in Spanish music. But yeah, so this is one of her really powerhouses songs that is like just full of energy, full of like it's a world-class song. So yeah, that's the story behind the series South. Honestly, really, I have to be honest, I think I like to keep it real. I was not the biggest fan of the name, but I have done my fair share to convince the team to change it, but just people like it. So I don't know. What can I say? What can I say? I am just one person. So
that is so funny because we didn't know what it meant. So we actually
yeah,
looked
yeah,
up
yeah,
the meaning of the like word, and I think it's like excellence or something.
yeah, something like that. That was the idea indeed.
Yeah,
It was it's just because, back in the day when we were releasing this line series, it's just such a popular. So this series was called Fuck 2020 before because it was COVID, and then we were just like, ah, COVID, what a year. So we released our first geisha, I remember, and we called it literally Fuck 2020. But
yeah.
then we were like, okay, 2020 is over, so we can't keep just calling it that. So we need to change it somehow. So we call it the Sauco. Yeah. But
Uh,
good that you say it, it's gonna help me reinforce my opinion in the team. I'm back with
well,
a little
oddly
bit.
enough, we when we found out the at least the meaning of the word, not the fact that it was from Rosalia, we were like, yeah, that's pretty cool actually. And like big letters, like a short name, and so Salco was like I like it. I don't know, and I love the colors of it. It's just absolutely beautiful. You know,
Yeah,
it's
really,
just
really
one of
nice
the fun
one.
ones. Yeah.
So just so you know, the idea behind this packing was so we recently rebranded, and then we were like, okay, what can we do to give justice to Sauco and Wildcard, because they're more of the exceptional coffees. And we took a lot of inspiration from natural wine here. So if you can see that the idea is just to express flavors in a more abstract way. So the label without the letters itself is
Oh,
just our if you had to think of that coffee in colors,
yeah.
and and then the letters are just really strong lettering there that's there to make a statement. So we took a lot of inspiration from natural wine there. And because, coffee has learned so much from the wine industry.
Yeah.
So we were also like, it's nice to give a little bit back to, and, I think more often than not, people in the coffee industry enjoy wine so much. So it just made sense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this coffee also that's so neat that you say that because now I'm looking at the bag and I'm like, yeah, it is the flavor is the color of the bag. These colors all
Yeah.
just kind of
Mhm.
running together. Wow. Oh, that's actually so cool. I didn't think about that. Yeah, this coffee is just remarkably unique. I mean, just to start with, it's a Cedra, which is just wonderful, wonderful variety. And, we don't get to taste it too often. And obviously, there's roasters you carry it here and there, but it's a little bit harder to come by, I would assume, just because we don't have it all the time. And this is just an absolute delight. I think the first time I actually had a Cedra, just randomly talking about it, was I think from Jose Geraldo, if I remember correctly. And this is kind of taking me back to that, which was like over a year ago, probably a year and a half, of just how wild the notes are. And it really, like, these notes are just so real. Like, oddly enough, turmeric, I actually 100% agree, which is very weird to think about. Um, but yeah, and rosemary and lemon, like almost like lemon juice, but like in a good way, not like a sour way, but like yeah, it's just absolutely odd. And it's a washed, which is just surprising me because I almost want to believe it's some crazy fermented coffee, but it's not.
Yep.
It's wild.
Well, it is it's a bit of a, well, I'll explain the processing, but maybe introducing the coffee a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think firstly the producer is my favorite producer in the world, Sebastian.
Mm,
Just because he's such a nice guy, he's so nice, so funny. He's fourth generation producer now.
mm,
And he actually is a lawyer by background, but then eventually fell back into coffee. He's only doing exceptional coffee. So the only varieties he's doing, geishas, whoosh whoosh, pink bourbons, and really just high level varieties. And Sidra is also one of the examples of how he's doing them. So, I mean, he's one of the most transparent farmers out there. Like, you can really ask him anything. He'll tell you honestly if there is something added in the coffee, if there are external additives, if they're not there, etc., right? Um, Here, I think in this coffee, there is, so just so you know, probably you already know this, in Colombia, every processing is done with carbonic maceration. So there is never just a fully washed coffee, or there is never just a fully natural coffee. It's always carbonically macerated, right? And here, with this one especially, there was carbonic maceration and then a very slow drying process, right? So that slow drying process and that wash process itself, that has been majority of the process, adds that delicateness to that coffee, and I think it's a nice contrast from the wild card, because in wild card you have such an expressive cup of coffee that is very bold and out there. Well, this one is bold but also very subtle, and that pepperiness, turmericness makes something you don't expect from a coffee at all. People look at this like, turmeric. There's no way this tastes like turmeric. Then they try it, they're like, oh my God, you
yeah.
know. That is really very spicy. And yeah, I took, the moment I tried this, I took a bag, put in my freezer. I was like, this is one of them, that has to be in the freezer, needs to go. Just, yeah, you know,
It's that
really
good.
nice watch. Yeah, and now we had a competitor who did we had the French Brewers Cup this weekend, and
Mhm.
he was he was competing. Unfortunately, didn't make it in the finals. He was in the semifinals, but he he did the French Brewers Cup with this coffee. Really good feedback. Very, very nice one. And yeah, super, super good. Very nice.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's remarkably tasty coffee. I, with the notes, I love the fact that this is a very, in my mind, a very sweet coffee, you know?
Yeah.
Just almost like, I don't know, it just reminds me of like a sweet tea almost as well. It's just remarkably enjoyable. And
Yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
I mean, this tastes like not any coffee I've had recently at all, and so this is truly just like a different coffee, and the
Yeah.
fact that
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know too much about Sebastian Ramirez, and so the fact that you're saying he grows kind of those nicer varieties is just the neatest thing, and he happens to be your favorite producers is really saying something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You should, and like just like Nestor, if you are ever curious about his processing, send him a DM on Instagram. He'll be more than happy to explain you thoroughly what he's doing, and he's very transparent. And for me, it's like this is just a prime example of this bottle of wines that you're just so exquisite and so complex. And unlike the wild card, which you can brew like whatever and it's gonna taste great, this one, depending on how you brew, the coffee takes that shape. There is a brew that is going to be super floral. There is a brew that's going to be super high on pepperiness. There is a brew that's going to be extremely citrusy. So this coffee just changes. The more you play with it, the more you're going to be like, is it the same coffee? So often what happens is in the team, people bring it and they brew differently, and we can't recognize this coffee. And we're like, what? This is the Sauco? We can't believe it. So in that way, I think you can really, really experiment a lot with the recipes in this one, because this one really has a lot to offer, a lot of complexity, and it really takes different shape with the way, if let's say if you go 1 to 15 compared to 1 to 17, it's going to be two completely different coffees. So I would really suggest experimenting a little bit with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm guessing kind of the same thing, probably even on espresso. Whether it's a longer shot or a shorter shot.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I haven't tried this one on espresso yet, but I'm sure. I'm if that's the case for filter,
Yeah,
I'm pretty
I'm.
certain that.
Yeah, I'm. This is probably. I mean, to be honest, I want to try all of one espresso, and in the next few days, at the shop, I'll throw them to the EK, and we'll just see what they taste like. But I think the Salco is actually what I'm most because
I'm
it's
gonna also try it water now. I'm
yeah,
curious.
yeah, it's just an absolute just crazy coffee, and it's yeah, again, like I said on the cupping table, the wild card and the Salco were like obviously the bigger standouts. But the Salco is just like this coffee is just different. Like
Yeah.
the Obligón was like this is just too fun. This is wild. But this one was just such a unique one to cup, and I think even on the aroma, actually, here let me get my cupping notes from the other week. It was just one of those that really stood out well, and it was probably one of my favorite cupping sessions we ever had. But yeah, even like on the nose, like as a dry just ground, like I was getting like bergamot and vanilla, like cinnamon and allspice, and it was just like this is just so fun, whatever this coffee
Yeah.
is. And that
I
was
see.
yeah, 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 and so to be able to drink it, and actually be able to sit with it is like way more fun than just cupping it. And so and this is one of the coffees that actually, so we have two approachable coffees and two exotic coffees that we kind of offer people, and we always kind of prioritize one of each category because a lot of people just get one, from each category. And so the wild card, happened to be the one that we were like, you know what, let's do this one, and it's Strawberry Fields, let's do this one. And so only about like 5 or 6 people got the Salco, and it's just like, man, it's so hard to decide. It was so hard to decide which one to choose,
Yeah.
to be honest. And this was very difficult. But
Oh,
those who got this one, it's absolutely
banger, banger. Yeah.
it's an absolute banger, and it's things like this. I'm just like, this is insane that we get to be able to have these coffees.
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah, way too fun. You know, I
Yeah.
was chatting with um Aaron, our bakery lead at the cafe, and he was kind of like, man, like, is Wide Awake in the U.S.? And I was like, I really don't know, but like the fact that we even got them is just like, it is really good, you know?
You're too kind. You're too kind. Actually, there is a Wide Awake in US. So often we get a lot of inquiries from, I don't know what are they doing actually, but a lot of times random people just approach us. Hey guys, we would love to have you for this. And so there is a Wide Awake business in the US. Not really sure what's it about.
No,
Putting it out there.
I
But
love
okay, since we're doing this, a sneak peek. The next one on Sauco is gonna be also from Sebastian and a white honey geisha.
Ooh,
10 times crazier than this one. Just leaving it a little segue out
no
there.
way. You s-
Yes.
you say a
And
white honey too?
yeah, it's so good. Oh my God. So good. But okay, we're focusing on the current, on the present.
Well,
I just get too excited by some coffees, you know?
well, that's actually, wait, real quick. I just have to say that's actually really exciting, only because recently we did a cupping and we happened to have a white honey, a yellow honey, a red honey, and a black honey on the table just randomly. And to be
Yeah.
honest, the white honey and the yellow honey, they were okay, and so it's been a while since I've had a white honey that blew me away, or just even was like really, really good. So that's actually really cool to hear, to be honest.
This one is like just drinking like a bouquet of flowers, and I don't even know how to explain it. Like really heavy on the yuzu, has that kombucha-like liquoriness also a tiny bit. Anyway, let's not go deep into it. Because then, that's the thing as well. It takes the shine from the coffees that we have right now, you
Yeah,
know.
no, these
So
coffees are absolutely wild. Yeah, I literally could not be happier to have these
yeah, we're very
instances.
happy to be working with you, to be able to have this conversation. And I'm very curious what people are going to think of the coffees as well. So, if you're watching this, feel free to share your feedback and would love to know. And for us, we really want to work and become better and better and better, And so, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever it is, send it our way.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I just have a few more questions, kind of just for you, just revolving around coffee and kind of the industry, just while I have you. So, kind of first of all, you say you brew at home too. Like, when brewing these coffees, for people, home brewing, let's just say like pour overs for the most part, is there, from your standpoint, a brewer that you love, and or like any parameters in regards to like very hot, or on the cooler side of brewing, that any of these coffees you would kind of be like, what, just let this is kind of how we generally brew.
Yeah. So, I really love to brew with different stuff.
Yeah,
I would say for me, I love the fact that you can brew with different brewers, and I would not be able to commit to one brewer personally because there's so fun, to be able to experiment. And personally, I think you could brew great coffee equally with each brewer. That's my opinion, right? And but I think the fact that if you can have a lot of brewers, why not?
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
but more often, I really find myself brewing with the V60 often, because it's so widely used. It's like a language almost now, right?
Yeah,
And it's just like the Comandante grinder, that it's just become a reference point. So it's easier to communicate around it. It's easier to adapt around it, and it's just, yeah, it makes everything a little bit more easier when it comes to being in a community.
yeah,
Um, I do love the Orea as well a lot. Really nice one. I think it helps a lot when I want to extract a bit more from the coffee, or a coffee like a juice box, where I really want to push the extraction and
mhm,
get that sweetness out. So It's funny, every year I find myself going in phases. When I started in coffee, I was a big fan of coarse ground coffee. So when I won the Aeropress, I was at 35 clicks, believe it or not. So s- extremely coarse and at 78 degrees water. So this is how big of a fan I was of acidity, and
Wow.
honestly, winning the Aeropress really reinforced that idea. But then now I'm more and more becoming a fan of finer grind coffee, and I'm somewhere always around 18 to 21 clicks. And I like to I like to keep my so I really play more around with the ratio. So I like to lock in variables and not change too many things. So I like to keep the grind size at 18 to 21. Water temp, I always keep around 91, 92,
Mhm.
and 15 grams. So what I'm really playing with is the ratio, either 1 to 15, 1 to 16, or 1 to 17.
Okay.
So that's how I try to approach it, because how I see it, if you play with a lot of variables, then you end up getting confused. And then it's a bit difficult to change based on what you want to get out of the coffee, right? And that's the approach that I take. And when it comes to pours, that's also an interesting one that you mentioned. The pulse, you always take 4 pulses with the coffees. Yeah, I try to do max three pours. I play more with the blooms. So when I want to extract a bit more, I go with a longer bloom, right? Especially with the juice box. Um, with the juice box, I try to keep only 2 pours because again, the more agitation that I give to the coffee, like a Kenyan coffee, it just clogs the filters, right? So I go for a 1 minute bloom and then a second full pour till 230, 240, wherever I'm trying to reach at, right? So that's the idea a little bit. So try to keep it as simple as I can. For me, also consistency is important still, since thank God that we have a bar because I can still be a barista. Because I really enjoy being a barista. It's only once a week, but it's something.
Yeah.
But that's also nice because then you can still be around the workflow. And for a barista standpoint, consistency is the most important thing, I think, right? Being able to produce the same quality every time. And I think to keep something more replicable. But that's the opportunity at home. I just do crazy stuff. I do whatever I want and I play around different brewers, sometimes 99 degrees, sometimes 75 degrees, 5 pours, 1 pour, just go
Man,
crazy.
one pour.
Yeah, for instance, juice boxes, sometimes I'd even just do a single pour, because it's a Japanese the
Wild.
I forgot the name actually. It starts with the O, osmotic flow, where you just do a single pour, and it's great because then, especially with coffees that produce more fines, it's easier to not get the coffee clogged, but still get enough sweetness and really go slow with it. So
Wow.
that gives you a lot of control over the brew.
That's
So
actually that's really cool. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that's the beauty of home brewing, right? You can really just experiment and do whatever, and you're the only one judging yourself. So
yeah. Yeah, and one thing that I love about like you, honestly, and I'm actually, depending on, I guess how you look at this, but at least from my perspective, we work with roasters and or we have in the past who are actually have really talked about trying to get as much sweetness from the cup. So like Andrew at Junto in South Carolina, I had a whole conversation with him last year of him just explaining like just kind of why and Mame very much focuses on sweetness. So it's the neatest thing actually in odd comparison that acidity is a focus here because as time has gone on, to be honest, it's something I think of less and less. And so the fact that I'm drinking these coffees and you're like, let's really get is actually kind of a neat thing because that's something I've
yeah,
really put to the side. And so the fact that now it's kind of coming up and being like, wow, like let's really try to get it and see
yeah.
how it's gonna brew. Especially, man, one or two pulses or just pours. That blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's also because, with especially with this juice box, it itself has such sweetness to offer that for me, highlighting the acidity works better. Um, I don't know. I guess for me, it's interesting that you say that because it's also often something we talk in the team because we have a different taste palette, even though we're very well calibrated with
Yeah.
what we are tasting, because we've been tasting together for a long time now. But then still, I think I'm the ones who likes acidity the most in the team, right? And I enjoy a balanced cup of coffee, don't get me wrong. But for me, it's also like it's just experimenting, and I think it also has to do a lot with growing up, how you grew up. And growing up, I've been such a fan of everything that has to be doing with citrusiness. I love eating grapes and oranges and lemons, lime, and all my food is super heavy on lime. And you know that influences also, of course it does, right? Because the way you grew up and the things you grew up eating is what you expect from your cup of coffee eventually as well. And I've never been a very big sugar fan, so I love natural sugars. I love ice cream, but besides that, I'm always team acidity. But yeah, I think again, it's interesting that you say that. I think balance is important, but then there is no acidity without sweetness. That's what I believe. That's sourness. That's
Mm,
why I like to say the word acidity, because for me there is given that there is sweetness. So
yeah.
yeah, that's the idea that I have.
No, yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, and I think it's the neatest thing being able to play around with different brewers too, you know? That's something, I do not as often as I'd like to be honest, but I used to do. And I still got a few other brewers around, and every once in a while I'll bring out the C70 or, the Kalita. Um, I really actually I've never brewed with the Oreo, and I have a couple people who keep telling me how good it is. And so that's one that it keeps coming back around, and I'm like, oh, maybe I need to get it. But the fact that you guys are like play around with it, I don't know.
Yeah.
Even that to an extent is even a different approach as opposed to other roasters who are just like brew it this way. It's best showed this way. The fact that you're like play around with the coffees is
Yeah.
even I don't know. I feel like that's kind of that just goes perfectly with Wide Awake and your branding and just everything
Yeah.
about you all. So that is a really neat thing to see.
No.
Um, yeah, you kind of push.
That's- you put it very beautifully, actually. And I think coffee is just, for us, we try to make the coffee roasting wise the best way we can, in a way that no matter how you brew, it should taste great. And that's the mission we have, that what coffees we send out, whatever is going on with the brewing process, the least amount of error that can be caused, the best.
Mm.
So yeah, you put it really nicely.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and lastly, kind of just wanted to ask for people at home, whether however they're brewing, whether it's on batch brew or pour over or espresso and wherever they are in their coffee journey, what would be something that you would kind of be like, man, if you're wanting to learn more, um, you know, is there like a book you would point them to or like an inspirational person that you're like, man, like you should follow this person or you should experiment, just more? Or like, is there something that you're like, man, like here's a little bit, of like, just go have fun, go learn more,
Yeah. I think the the fastest thing I've learned from is watching competitors' presentation on YouTube. So there is a lot of competition videos that people are that you can find on YouTube. So of course there is, famous YouTubers, there's a lot of books, and that is given. I think everyone's going to recommend it. But personally, I was always interested on how the greatest brewers in the world are brewing their coffee, and what are the things that they are focusing on, and how can I inculcate those principles in my daily brewing, right?
Yeah.
So the more I understood them, the more I could play around with them and use it for my benefit. So a lot of times now, recently I saw the French Purse Cup second position. The guy blended three coffees together and three exceptional coffees, right? So I was very intrigued by that idea, and I was like, okay, you know, um, curious to try that in the coming weeks. So I think that's always something that I enjoy a lot, and uh, I like to watch a lot of YouTube content, and
Mhm.
that's something that it's also nice to see every year on the World Coffee Championships what people are, what is the best of the best, and how are people approaching coffee. And at home, I think since um, you have a little bit more of that benefit to play around, so that also helps to be at home no matter where you are, and then directly apply it. And coffee is such an industry where, especially in filter coffee, you don't need crazy equipment, you know. Sure, with espresso, it's a different ball game. But filter, I think you just need a nice kettle, uh, a grinder, and you're all set, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's something that helped me a lot. But I personally would definitely recommend the two books that changed the way I did coffee. One was Terroir by Barista Hustle, which was a lot about how different terrains in the world influence coffee and the origin. And I think that helps you understand a lot better how different varieties and different origins perform in your final cup. And then also the physics of filter coffee from Jonathan Garnier. So he's an
Mm.
astrophysicist, and I'm an engineer by background. So for me, I really enjoy numbers and I really enjoy physics. That gives you makes if you're geeky, you know, if not, just whatever. Go to Lance Hendrick. You're in good hands with Lance, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
That is some really good stuff. And it's really neat to hear as time has gone on, like I'm not particularly in general a competitive person for the most part. But and then excuse me. I'm gonna drink some water. But in the last year or so, there have been multiple people that I've been chatting with who, are kind of are very just simply kind of like you said in regards to competition, that they're saying like go watch on YouTube or go compete. You can actually learn a lot, and that's actually kind of been really fun because before that I wasn't watching anything,
No.
and so it's been really neat to be able to, I don't know, just kind of take that and run with it. I mean, even probably a month or so ago, I was chatting with Charlie Chuvley of Momos, the 2021 World Tasters Cup champion, and he was like, um, he was just chatting about like, man, like you should, practice every day, like just taste coffee every day. And I was just like, I don't know, it just like even the simple things of just like that. I was like, man, this is it's neat to have people who are remarkably encouraging and just just go have fun, go and just better yourself in coffee, enjoy it,
No.
and try to keep going and learning. And the fact that almost like everyone in the industry that I've met through basically every roaster we've worked with and or haven't worked with has been absolutely phenomenal, both in terms of personality and just kindness, and everything is just the neatest thing. And so yeah.
I think I think it's more that you're kind, and then everyone cannot be not kind with you.
Yeah, that too. I'm dying. But yeah, this JD, this has been absolutely amazing. I cannot
Yeah,
thank you
well,
enough.
it's very fun.
Yeah,
It's really,
I'm
really fun.
looking
Thank you.
forward. Oh, sorry, what?
Just thanking you. Thank
Yeah,
you, Mister.
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if there's a possible future with Wide Awake and Comet. So we will keep in contact for sure. And
Absolutely. And
yeah, any
yeah,
feedback I get from everyone drinking your coffee, I will send your way. Um, and maybe they should reach out directly to you and just be like, "Hello, Wide
yeah,
Awake." Yeah,
please do.
yeah,
Please, it would be amazing. Thanks, David, for the chat. Really, really enjoyed it.
yes, same.
And We'll
Yeah,
keep in touch.
that's right. Have a great day. Good to see you, Jaideep. Bye.
Bye.